The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 27 alien species sat around a massive circular table. Their voices were hushed, and many kept glancing at the large screen showing a star map with several red dots. "Another outpost has gone silent," said Delegate Vorex, his blue scales reflecting the dim light. "That makes 7 in the past cycle." The room fell silent. A tall, slender alien with silver skin stood up. This was Dr. Zixval, the Council's chief scientist. "The energy readings match those of previous attacks," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "The void wraiths are becoming more active. Their hunting pattern has changed." Several delegates shuddered at the mention of void wraiths. For centuries, ships and outposts had vanished in certain sectors of space. The only clues were strange energy readings and rare survivor accounts of swirling lights that seemed to consume everything they touched. The Council had named these mysterious entities void wraiths, predators from the dark spaces between stars. "We must expand the warning zone," said Councillor Mipa, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "No ships can travel within 50 light years of the latest sighting." The delegates nodded in agreement. Fear was the only policy they knew when it came to the void wraiths. Just then, the chamber doors slid open. A council aide rushed in and whispered something to the head counselor. The old alien's expression changed from annoyance to surprise. "It seems we have visitors," the head counselor announced. "A new species has arrived at our station and requests to address the council." The delegates murmured among themselves. A new species reaching the galactic hub was rare. 5 figures entered the chamber. They walked on 2 legs and had no scales, tentacles, or extra limbs. Their skin ranged from pale to dark brown, and they wore matching blue uniforms with silver trim. "Humans," whispered Dr. Zixval, who had studied distant transmissions from their part of the galaxy. "They have achieved faster than light travel sooner than we predicted." The leader of the humans stepped forward. He was tall for his species with short brown hair and a confident stance. "I am Captain John Miller of Earth," he said through a translation device. "We come in peace and friendship, hoping to establish relations with the Galactic Council." The council members studied the humans with a mix of curiosity and caution. Behind Captain Miller stood 4 others, 2 males and 2 females by their appearance. "I present my team," Miller continued. "Lieutenant Susan Gray, our xenobiologist; Frank Martinez, security officer; Lisa Bennett, communications specialist; and Alan Hayes, our science officer." The head counselor rose to greet them. "We welcome you to the Galactic Council. Your arrival is unexpected, but not unwelcome." Susan Gray, a woman with curly red hair, stepped forward. Her eyes were locked on the star map with its red warning markers. "If I may ask," she said, "what do those red areas signify?" "They form an interesting pattern." The chamber went silent. The delegates exchanged nervous glances. "Those are restricted zones," the head counselor said carefully. "Dangerous areas where ships have been lost." Susan looked at the map more closely. The pattern seems almost deliberate, not random like natural hazards would be. Dr. Zixval approached the humans. "You are observant, Lieutenant Gray. Those are regions where we have detected void wraiths." "Void wraiths?" Captain Miller asked. "Ancient predators," Dr. Zixval explained, his voice low. "They appear as energy distortions before consuming ships and stations. We have lost thousands to them over the centuries." The humans didn't show the fear the aliens expected. Instead, Science Officer Hayes stepped up to the map, his eyes narrowed in concentration. "These energy readings," he said, pointing to the data scrolling beside the map. "They're unlike anything we've encountered, but they don't necessarily indicate predatory behavior." The aliens stared at the humans in disbelief. "You would do well to fear the void wraiths," warned Councillor Mipa. "They are the galaxy's oldest nightmare." Captain Miller and his crew exchanged glances. They had come seeking new allies and knowledge, but instead found a galactic community living in fear of something they barely understood. Perhaps, Miller said carefully, we could learn more about these entities. On Earth, we have a saying, knowledge dispels fear. The council members looked at the humans with a mixture of surprise and pity. They had no idea what horrors awaited them. The U.S. horizon drifted silently toward the abandoned alien outpost. Captain Peter Collins stood on the bridge, watching the strange structure grow larger on the main screen. The outpost was built into a small asteroid, with curved metal spires extending outward like frozen tentacles. "Any life signs?" he asked, his voice tense but controlled. Science Officer Alan Hayes shook his head. "None, Captain. The station appears completely dead. No power readings either." Captain Collins nodded. "Prepare the away team. I want to know what happened here." 20 minutes later, Captain Collins led the team through the airlock and into the alien structure. With him were Science Officer Hayes, Communications Officer Lisa Bennett, Security Chief Frank Martinez, and Engineer Paul Rodriguez. They moved carefully through the dark corridors, their flashlights creating long shadows on the curved walls. "This place has been empty for weeks, maybe months," Martinez said, his hand resting on his weapon. "But there's no sign of a fight or attack." Lisa Bennett stopped suddenly, her head tilted to one side. "Captain, I'm picking up some kind of signal." She adjusted her handheld scanner. "It's very faint, but it's coming from deeper inside the station." They followed the signal to what appeared to be the main control room. Alien symbols covered the walls and strange chairs sat empty before dark screens. "Can you get any of this working?" Collins asked Rodriguez. The engineer examined the control panels. "I think so. Their power system is different from ours, but not completely alien." He connected a small device to the alien technology, and after a few minutes, the screens flickered to life. "The logs," Hayes said, moving to one of the screens. "The translation software is working. They were monitoring something in this sector." He pointed to a star map similar to the one they had seen at the Galactic Council. They called it Hunters from the Void that came without warning. As Hayes worked on the logs, Bennett moved to another console. "There's a recording here, Captain." The screen showed an alien with blue scales speaking rapidly. Its 4 eyes were wide with fear. "The translation is rough," Bennett said, "but it's saying, 'They have returned.'" The lights came through the darkness. "They surrounded Outpost 7 first. Now they are here. They watch us. They study us. When they finish, we will be gone like the others." The recording ended abruptly. Martinez frowned. "Sounds like these void wraiths the council mentioned." "But there's no damage," Rodriguez pointed out. "No signs of violence or struggle. Everyone just left." Hayes looked up from another console. According to the logs, they abandoned the station after seeing the energy patterns. They ran before anything even happened. Captain Collins was about to respond when a soft blue light began to fill the room. It seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Captain," Martinez whispered, his weapon now drawn. "Look." Small orbs of pulsing light appeared near the ceiling. They floated gently, like soap bubbles caught in a breeze. The orbs moved around the room, pausing near each team member. "Don't move," Collins ordered. "Nobody fire." One of the orbs hovered directly in front of Hayes. It pulsed brighter when he raised his scanner toward it. "They're giving off the same energy signature the council warned us about," Hayes said quietly. "These are them, the Void Wraiths." But instead of attacking, the orbs simply observed. One floated near Bennett's communication device, pulsing rapidly when it made a standard beep. "They seem curious," Bennett said. After several tense minutes, the orbs slowly drifted away, passing through the solid walls as if they weren't there. "Everyone okay?" Collins asked, looking around at his team. They all nodded, their expressions a mix of fear and wonder. "Let's get back to the ship," Collins said. "I think we found what we came for." As they made their way back to the airlock, Rodriguez spoke what they were all thinking. "Those didn't seem like mindless predators to me. They were studying us. The team reached their shuttle and took off from the abandoned outpost. As they approached the horizon, something massive appeared in space ahead of them. It was like a ripple in reality itself, a swirling distortion of light and energy that matched the Council's descriptions of void wraiths. But unlike the aliens who had fled in terror, the humans watched with fascination. "Maybe they're not hunters," Rodriguez said softly. "Maybe they've been trying to talk all along." Back at the Galactic Council station, Lieutenant Susan Gray and Senolinguist Daniel Clark sat in a small research room. The walls were covered with star charts and images of the void wraiths captured by alien ships before they disappeared. "Look at this," Susan said, pointing to a pattern on her screen. "The void wraiths only appear near certain types of planets." Daniel leaned closer. "You're right. Rocky planets with high metal content, usually with strong magnetic fields." "And their movement patterns," Susan continued. "They always follow the same sequence. First small scouts, then larger groups, and finally the massive energy field." Daniel nodded, his eyes wide with excitement. "That's not random predator behavior. That's exploration. Observation. Like we would do when studying a new species." The door slid open, and Captain Miller walked in. He had just finished another meeting with the Council representatives. "Any progress?" he asked. Susan stood up. "Captain, we think the Council might be wrong about these void wraiths. The patterns suggest they might be intelligent beings trying to study or communicate with others." Miller considered this. The Horizon team reported similar observations. The entities showed curiosity, not aggression. "We need to get closer," Daniel said. "Really study them instead of running away." Captain Miller's expression turned serious. "I've just proposed that very idea to the Council. I suggested humans might investigate directly." "What did they say?" Susan asked. "They think we're crazy," Miller replied with a small smile. Ambassador Mipa actually turned pale, or whatever counts as pale for her species. "They believe it's a suicide mission." Daniel looked back at the data. They've been running from these things for centuries. All that fear has clouded their judgment. The door opened again, and a woman in a lab coat entered. This was Dr. Catherine Williams, the Horizon's chief scientist who had been called to the station after their encounter. "I've been reviewing the sensor data from the Horizon," she said without preamble. "Our instruments detected things the alien technology missed." She brought up new readings on the main screen. "The void wraiths emit specific frequency patterns, almost like language," Daniel finished, eyes widening. "Exactly," Dr. Williams nodded. "I think I can develop specialized sensors that could analyze these patterns in ways the alien technology couldn't. Maybe even find a way to respond." Captain Miller looked at his team. "The U.S. Horizon is still in the area. If we retrofit it with your new sensors, Dr. Williams, we could attempt direct contact." Susan looked concerned. "The Council will never approve this mission." "They don't have to," Miller replied. "The exploration of unknown phenomena falls under our first contact protocols. This is our decision." 3 days later, the team gathered in the Horizon's conference room. The ship had been equipped with Dr. Williams' new sensors, and the crew had been briefed on the mission. Captain Collins studied the faces around the table. "This mission is completely voluntary. The Council believes we're facing extremely dangerous entities. Anyone who wishes to remain at the station may do so." No one moved. Engineer Rodriguez spoke up. "I've created a device that mimics the energy signature of damaged alien technology. If these void wraiths are attracted to that, we might be able to lure them in for study. And I've prepared a series of mathematical sequences we can broadcast," Lisa Bennett added. "Basic patterns that should be recognizable to any intelligent life form." Captain Collins nodded. "Remember, we're not here to run away. We're here to understand." As the meeting ended, Science Officer Hayes approached Dr. Williams. "The aliens have been so afraid for so long, they never stopped to actually study these entities. Dr. Williams smiled slightly. Sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we refuse to understand. The Horizon powered up its engines and set course for the region where void wraiths had last been seen. Unlike every other ship that had traveled these stars, they weren't running away. They were moving closer. The U.S. Horizon floated silently in the empty space. For 3 days, they had waited in this sector where void wraiths frequently appeared. The crew was tense but focused. This was not like any mission they had undertaken before. On the bridge, Captain Collins sat in his command chair, watching the main screen that showed only stars and distant nebulae. "Any changes, Mr. Hayes?" he asked. Science Officer Hayes shook his head. "Nothing yet, Captain. All sensors are at maximum sensitivity." In the engineering section, Paul Rodriguez made final adjustments to his device. It was designed to mimic the energy signature of damaged alien technology, which they hoped would attract the entities. The small machine hummed softly as it broadcast its signal into space. Day 3, Lisa Bennett said quietly from her communication station. "The Council records show most ships were found within hours of entering these regions. Most ships were also trying to leave as fast as possible," Frank Martinez pointed out. "We're deliberately trying to make contact." Captain Collins was about to respond when a soft beeping came from the science station. "Captain," Hayes said urgently, "I'm detecting energy fluctuations at coordinates 227 Mark 38. Everyone turned to the main screen. At first, there was nothing. Then small points of light appeared, like stars being born. They grew larger, brighter, until they were swirling masses of energy that seemed to bend the space around them. "Void wraiths," Collins whispered. "Multiple contacts." The glowing entities moved toward the ship, surrounding it in a loose circle. They pulsed with different colors: blue, purple, white, creating a beautiful but alien display. "They're scanning us," Hayes reported, watching his instruments. "But unlike with alien vessels, they don't seem to be attempting to consume us." Rodriguez's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, they're responding to my device, but they're keeping their distance from our power core. It's almost like they're being careful." This behavior was completely different from what the Council had described. These weren't mindless predators attacking everything they encountered. "They're studying us," Dr. Williams said, watching the entities with fascination. "Just as we're studying them." Collins made a decision. "Ms. Bennett, prepare to transmit the mathematical sequence we discussed." Bennett nodded and entered commands into her console. The ship's external lights began to pulse in a simple pattern. 1 flash, 2 flashes, 3 flashes, 5 flashes, 8 flashes, the beginning of the Fibonacci sequence. Everyone held their breath, waiting. After a moment, one of the largest energy forms moved closer to the ship. It began to pulse with its own pattern of light. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and then it continued. 13, 21. "They're responding," Hayes said, his voice filled with excitement. "They're completing the sequence." Bennett looked at her captain. "Sir, should I continue with the next pattern?" Collins nodded. "Proceed." The ship's lights flashed a new sequence, a simple representation of the first 10 prime numbers. Again, the entities responded, completing the sequence perfectly. "This confirms intelligence," Dr. Williams said, "and mathematical understanding." The entities continue to surround the ship, their movements becoming more complex. They seem to be dancing around the vessel, creating intricate patterns of light and energy. "Captain," Hayes called out, "I'm detecting something new." The entities are emitting specific frequency patterns, just like Dr. Williams predicted. They're trying to communicate. The patterns appeared on the science station screen, complex waveforms that shifted and changed. "Record everything," Collins ordered, "and prepare to transmit simple audio frequencies in response." As Bennett prepared the transmission, the largest of the energy forms moved even closer to the ship. It hovered near the bridge viewport, pulsing gently with blue and white light. There was nothing threatening about it. If anything, it seemed curious. Collins stood from his chair and walked slowly to the viewport. He stood face to face with the entity, separated only by the transparent aluminum of the ship's hull. "Hello," he said softly, even though he knew it couldn't hear him. "We've been looking for you." The entity pulsed brightly, as if in response to his presence. For the first time in centuries, someone was meeting the void wraiths without fear. Dr. Catherine Williams stared at the data flowing across her screen. The patterns were becoming clearer with each passing hour. What had once seemed like random energy fluctuations now showed distinct structures and repetitions. "They're not predators," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're a non-corporeal species. They exist as pure energy." Captain Collins looked over her shoulder at the complex patterns. "Can we communicate with them?" "I believe so," Williams replied. "Their energy patterns are a form of language." In the communications center, Lisa Bennett worked with Daniel Clark, who was advising remotely through quantum communication from the Council Station. They were developing a basic translation matrix based on the mathematical exchanges they had already established. "The patterns repeat every 7 seconds, Bennett said, "and they change slightly each time, like they're trying different approaches to make us understand." Clark's voice came through the speaker. "Try matching their rhythm, but altering the frequency. Show them we understand the structure but need to find a common reference point." Bennett adjusted her equipment and sent out a new signal. The energy beings outside the ship pulsed brightly in response. "I think we're getting somewhere," she said. After hours of careful exchanges, patterns began to emerge that the translation software could interpret. Rough, basic meanings at first, but growing clearer with each exchange. "They call themselves the Luminary," Williams announced to the crew who had gathered in the main conference room. "They evolved in the gaps between dimensions. They're beings of pure energy." Hayes brought up a 3D model of the communication patterns they had decoded. "According to what we've learned, they've been trying to communicate with solid beings, that's us and the other aliens, for thousands of years. But something went wrong every time," Rodriguez added. "When they approached alien ships or stations, their energy fields disrupted the technology. Systems failed, sometimes catastrophically." Collins nodded slowly. "So when they tried to examine alien ships, they accidentally disabled them," Williams finished. "The aliens interpreted this as an attack and either fled or tried to fight back. The Luminary never understood why the solid ones always ran away or became hostile." Martinez frowned. "But why didn't they affect our ship the same way?" Rodriguez pulled up a diagram comparing human and alien technology. "Our systems are different. The aliens rely heavily on quantum fluctuation principles for their tech. The Luminary's natural energy fields disrupt those systems. Our more primitive but robust technology isn't affected the same way." "So all this time," Bennett said softly, "the most feared entities in the galaxy were just trying to say hello." Williams nodded. "Exactly. The Luminary thought the alien technology was producing energy patterns similar to their speech. They were attempting to respond to what they thought were greetings." The crew sat in silence, absorbing this information. Centuries of fear, ships lost, outposts abandoned, all because of a misunderstanding. "We need to bring this information back to the Council," Collins said firmly. "And we need to bring representatives of the Luminary with us." Hayes looked concerned. "How?" "They're beings of pure energy. We can't exactly give them a ride." Rodriguez smiled slowly. "Actually, I might have an idea about that." 2 days later, the U.S. Horizon approached the Galactic Council Station. Inside the ship's cargo bay, Rodriguez had created specialized energy fields that could contain and transport several Luminary entities safely. The fields allowed the energy beings to maintain their form while preventing them from accidentally disrupting nearby technology. The Luminary had eagerly accepted the invitation. Through their improved communication system, they expressed excitement at finally being able to interact with solid beings without causing harm. As the ship docked, Captain Collins prepared his crew for what would likely be a tense reception. "Remember," he told them, "the Council and every alien species have spent centuries in fear of the Luminary. Breaking through that fear won't be easy." Williams looked at the containment fields where the Luminary pulsed with gentle blue light. "They're not monsters," she said quietly. "They never were." Collins nodded. "Now we just have to convince everyone else of that." The moment the Luminary entered the Galactic Council chamber, chaos erupted. Delegates jumped from their seats, screaming in their various languages. Security forces rushed forward with weapons drawn. Some representatives simply fled the room. "Please remain calm," Captain Collins shouted over the noise. "They mean no harm." But panic had taken hold. Years of fear could not be erased in a moment. The head counselor pounded a large gong to restore order, its deep sound echoing through the chamber. "Captain Collins," the head counselor said, voice shaking, "you have brought the destroyers into our sacred hall. Explain yourself immediately." The Luminary floated peacefully in their containment fields, their lights pulsing with gentle blues and purples. They made no threatening moves, simply observing the reaction of the aliens around them. "These beings are not destroyers," Collins said firmly. "They are the Luminary, an intelligent species that has been trying to communicate with us for centuries." Dr. Nancy Foster, the human diplomat who had joined them from Earth's embassy, stepped forward. She was calm and composed, offering a stark contrast to the frightened aliens. "Honored Council," she said, "we request the opportunity to explain what we have learned, and to introduce you properly to a species that wishes for peaceful contact." Slowly, the chamber quieted. Delegates returned to their seats, though they kept their distance from the floating energy beings. Security remained on high alert, weapons still drawn. "You may proceed," the head counselor said reluctantly. Dr. Williams brought forward the data they had collected. Using the Council's holographic system, she displayed the communication patterns they had decoded. "The Luminary exist as pure energy," she explained. "They evolved in the spaces between dimensions and perceive reality differently than we do." Hayes continued the presentation. "For millennia, they have been attempting to communicate with solid life forms. But their natural energy fields disrupted your technology whenever they came close. When they approached your ships and stations," Rodriguez added, "they were trying to respond to what they thought were greetings. The energy emissions from your engines and systems appeared to them as communication attempts." The council members listened with growing astonishment. Dr. Zixval, the council's chief scientist, approached the data displays with cautious interest. "But we lost thousands to these. Luminary," he said. "Ships vanish. Outposts were destroyed." "Not destroyed," Bennett corrected gently. "When the Luminary approached to communicate, their energy fields interfered with your quantum-based systems. Ships lost power. Life support failed. Many crews abandoned their vessels or evacuated outposts before any real contact could be established. The destruction was accidental," Foster explained. "And once they realized their approach caused harm, they would withdraw, confused by the reaction. They never understood why their attempts at greeting were met with fear or hostility." A murmur spread through the chamber as the delegates processed this information. The head counselor turned to the floating Luminary. "Can they understand us now?" she asked. Collins nodded. "Through our translation system, yes. They wish to speak with you directly." The largest of the Luminary pulsed in a complex pattern. The translation appeared on the chamber screens. "We greet the solid ones with peace. For many cycles we have watched your ships cross the void. We wished only to share knowledge. We did not know our presence caused harm. This misunderstanding brings us sorrow." The chamber fell silent. The delegates stared at the message, then at the peaceful beings floating before them. All this time, Counselor Mipa whispered, "We thought they were monsters from the void." "They were never monsters," Collins said. "Just different. Trying to reach out across a gulf of understanding that seemed impossible to cross." The head counselor approached the containment field cautiously. The luminary inside pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of her four-chambered heart. A gesture of respect the translation system had taught them. "We have much to discuss," the head counselor said, "and much to learn from each other." Foster smiled. "That's why we're here, to help build that bridge of understanding." The first step had been taken. The monsters of galactic legend were becoming something else entirely. Potential friends. In the weeks that followed, Engineer Paul Rodriguez and Science Officer Alan Hayes worked day and night. They needed to develop a better interface that would allow the Luminary to communicate without disrupting alien systems. The lab they had been given on the Council station was filled with equipment from both human and alien design. Rodriguez focused on the hardware, while Hayes worked on the translation algorithms. "The basic containment field works," Rodriguez said, adjusting a control panel. "But it's too limiting for them. They can't fully express themselves." Hayes nodded, not looking up from his screen. "The Luminary communicate through at least 37 different energy frequencies. Our current system only translates 12. A Luminary representative floated nearby in its containment field, watching their work with interest. Its light pulsed in patterns that the translation system interpreted as questions and suggestions. "They're actually helping us build a better way to talk to them," Rodriguez said with a smile. "I've never met a species so eager to be understood." In another part of the station, Dr. Catherine Williams was making discoveries that amazed even the Council's top scientists. The Luminary possessed knowledge about spatial phenomena that could revolutionize interstellar travel. They exist partially in other dimensions, Williams explained to a group of alien scientists who had cautiously agreed to work with her. "Their perception of spacetime is completely different from ours." Dr. Zix Val, the Council scientist who had once warned about the dangers of void wraiths, now leaned forward with fascination. "They can see shortcuts through space that we never imagined existed." "Exactly," Williams said, "and they're willing to share this knowledge with us." Despite these breakthroughs, many in the Galactic Council remained hesitant. Centuries of fear could not be erased in a few weeks. During a private council session, the delegates debated what to do about the Luminary. "We cannot simply forget the ships and lives lost," one delegate argued. "But now we know those losses were accidents, not attacks," another countered. The head counselor turned to Captain Miller, who had been invited to the session. "What do you recommend, Captain? Your people have shown a unique ability to interact with these beings." Miller stood before the council. "I propose that humans serve as intermediaries. Our technology is compatible with both luminary energy patterns and your systems. We can help build a foundation for understanding." "You would trust these creatures so quickly?" Counselor Mipa asked. "We've scanned them, studied them, and communicated with them," Miller replied. "They've shown no hostility, only a desire to connect and share knowledge." The alien delegates murmured among themselves. Finally, the head counselor spoke. "Your species puzzles us, Captain Miller. You show no fear in the face of what we considered monsters for generations." Lieutenant Susan Gray, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "If I may, council members, humans have a long history of turning the terrifying into the familiar through understanding. Our earliest ancestors feared fire until they learned to use it. We feared diseases until we understood their causes." She gestured to the image of a luminary on the main screen. "Yes, these beings seemed frightening. They were different, powerful, and unknown. But once we looked past our fear, we found potential allies with much to teach us." The council chamber grew quiet as the delegates considered her words. "Perhaps," the head counselor said slowly, "there is wisdom in the human approach. We will allow limited diplomatic relations with the Luminary, with humans serving as intermediaries." It was not full acceptance, but it was a start. As the meeting ended, Miller approached Gray. "Well said, Lieutenant." She smiled slightly. "I just told them the truth. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is our own ignorance." Outside the council chamber, Rodriguez was demonstrating his newest creation to a group of curious alien engineers. It was a more advanced interface that allowed a luminary to communicate without being confined to a restrictive containment field. As the luminary expressed itself through the device, its patterns translated into words, images, and even simple music. The alien engineers watched in amazement as what they had once feared as a monster shared a beautiful representation of its home dimension. Fear was slowly giving way to wonder. 6 months later, a joint human luminary outpost floated in neutral space. Unlike the angular metal structures of human stations or the organic curves of alien designs, this outpost was something entirely new. Parts of it were solid matter, while other sections existed as pure energy fields that only the luminary could fully inhabit. Captain John Miller stood by a large observation window, looking out at the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. Next to him, contained in a special interface unit, was a luminary representative named Pulse of Distant Stars in the human translation. "Your people have adapted quickly," Miller said. "I don't think anyone expected this level of cooperation so soon." The luminary pulsed with gentle blue light. The translation came through the interface. "Your species helped others overcome fear. This is a rare gift. The solid ones avoided us for so many cycles that we believed communication might be impossible. Sometimes an outside perspective is all that's needed," Miller replied. Around them, the outpost hummed with activity. Humans worked alongside the luminary, learning from each other. The energy beings shared insights about the universe that helped humans advance their technology by centuries. In return, humans taught the luminary about material existence and helped them experience aspects of physical reality through specialized interfaces. Dr. Williams had created devices that allowed the luminary to manipulate solid matter. Engineer Rodriguez had developed sensors that let humans perceive some of the extra-dimensional aspects of luminary existence. Each day brought new discoveries and deeper understanding. Most surprising to Miller was the small but growing number of alien scientists who had joined the outpost. Brave individuals who had overcome thousands of years of cultural fear to work directly with the once dreaded void wraiths. Dr. Zix Val had been one of the first. The council scientist now spent most of his time in a laboratory with 2 luminari, exploring theoretical physics that blended their different perspectives. "I wasted decades studying them as predators," Zix Val had told Miller recently. "Now I realize they are the greatest teachers we could have hoped for." In the central hub of the outpost, a special chamber had been created where humans, aliens, and luminary could gather. It featured technology from all 3 groups, allowing for true multi-species conferences. It was here that Miller now stood, preparing to address the full Galactic Council via holographic transmission. The chamber filled with representatives from all sides of this new alliance. As Miller began his speech, he looked at the diverse gathering before him. 6 months ago, the galaxy lived in fear of what they called void wraiths. Today, we stand together with the luminary as partners. This transformation did not come from superior weapons or defensive technology. It came from a willingness to understand instead of fear. The council members, appearing as holograms in the chamber, listened attentively. Many still seemed uneasy about the luminary, but their attitudes were slowly changing. "Humans are newcomers to this galactic community," Miller continued. "We have much to learn from all of you, but perhaps we bring something valuable as well. A reminder that the unknown need not be feared, that what seems monstrous at first glance may simply be different, waiting to be understood." After the address, Miller and Pulse of Distant Stars moved to a special simulation room. It was Rodriguez's newest creation, a place where the luminary could experience simulations of Earth environments. Today, they were viewing an ocean. The deep blue waters and crashing waves were projected all around them. For Miller, it was a reminder of home. For the luminary, it was as alien and fascinating as their energy dimension had once seemed to humans. "Your oceans move constantly," Pulse observed, "like our energy currents between dimensions. Perhaps we're not so different after all," Miller said with a smile. As they watched the simulated sunset over the water, Miller thought about how far they had come. The fear was not completely gone. There would be challenges ahead as more species overcame their ingrained terror of the luminary. But a beginning had been made. The monsters of galactic legend had been revealed as potential friends, waiting for someone to look past fear and simply say hello. And beyond the edges of known space, other mysterious phenomena awaited discovery, perhaps more monsters that only needed to be understood. The galaxy had become a little less frightening and infinitely more interesting.